The reason I've called the new GrindKing truck the locker is mainly because of the groove, which is the most obvious thing about this truck. And these grooves were designed to emulate a truck that's been already worn in. As you can see, this truck has been grooved all the way to the axle, but it's cracked. They usually break and they're at the end of their life when the grooves are at the best, where these begin where most trucks end in their lifespan. And you can grind way down past where the axle, some people think the axle just goes straight, but it bends down. So you have plenty of room to build even deeper grooves. And that's something that makes this truck unique. You can get much deeper with your grooves. So this is what I call the UBeam Axle, which is inside the locker truck. And it's the main reason why the locker truck can have those deeper grooves and allow you to even go deeper with your grooves than on any other truck, because you can actually grind down below the axle because of this U shape. And this U shape has four reasons which make it better than a standard axle. Number one is, of course, the shape itself allows for the grooves to be like this, so that you have plenty of room below the top of this groove before you hit the axle. Number two, it's stronger. So you can see I flattened it here in the middle, which makes it a beam rather than a rod. And a beam, like I-beams, are stronger, so much stronger that, number three, it can be lighter. So with these holes in it, the axle is lighter, of course. And then four, it's impossible to slip in the casting. This cannot move inside the casting because of its shape. Some trucks, because the rod is straight, on most trucks, there is a chance that sometimes the axle can move. So those are the four reasons. So probably for me, the best innovation in this truck is something which I had been working on for years and couldn't figure it out till finally I had a system that solved the problem of kingpin breakage. So some of you may have broken a kingpin out there and know that they always usually break right where they exit the base plate. And that's because that's, especially with inverted kingpins, it's the weak spot where the threads end. And that's right at the shear point when it exits the base plate. And that causes the breakage. And even with regular kingpins that aren't inverted, they break there too, because you can think about all the stress, and there's a break point right there, so they just snap at that point at the where they exit the base plate. On the locker truck, what I did was created this sleeve brace, which protects the kingpin and has the point where the stress is much higher here. So it's harder to break a kingpin from here as opposed to down there. So with all that leverage, now there's very little leverage to snap it, and it's also more stable. So this improvement makes a big difference, and we haven't seen a kingpin break since we've done this yet. So this system for bushings in the locker is called a tri-cush bushing system. And I've created 3 bushings instead of 2. Most trucks have just 2 bushings. The locker is 3, which allows a lot more customization, because you can run it with all 3 together, or you can even just run it with just the middle one and remove the top one, or run it in loose truck mode with just the top one and stuff the middle one into the nut portal to keep the kingpin from dropping down, which gives you that loose truck feel. So you can experiment and find which mode works best for you, and do that on both your trucks to find what might work for different types of terrain or your style. Another unique feature of the locker truck is this adjustable base plate with these 3 holes that are on each base plate. So that allows you to have 9 different positions, not 3, because you think it's just 3, but because there's 2 trucks, you actually there's 9 different ways you can do it. You can bring both in, both out, one in, one out, or you can actually shift your wheelbase to keep your wheelbase the same, but actually shift it on your board. This is something I suggest you experiment with, because you'll find every board is different, and it will make it so you have these different ways to fine tune your ride. So perhaps the most funny sounding one is the nut portal, which has a very important function, because you can actually keep your trucks on your board and remove your bushings. Before, with inverted kingpins, you have to take your trucks off to get the nut under here replaced or whatever. But now you can actually, and by the way, this uses a regular nut. It doesn't, you can buy these nuts at a hardware store, so it's easy to replace and cheap to replace, these lock nuts, which then can slide through the nut portal while your board is still mounted, and you can change your bushings without having to remove your trucks. Another thing that separates the locker from other trucks is the size of its base plate and its shape. When you have a base plate that has a square rectangle shape, you have a smaller footprint, which increases the amount of impact and stress to your board. If you'll notice, boards usually break right at this sharp edge of base plates, because that's a break point. It's a shear point. The locker has a rounded edge right here, and it's also a much bigger footprint than a standard truck. So it's wider and it's bigger, longer wise, and has that curve, which protects your deck. So your decks have less likely a chance to break, because there's less stress that's being put on your board.